So I just spent the past 20 minutes thinking I was filming and I wasn't. So we're trying this again for the second time. Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So if you're new here, my name is Chantel and I post videos at least once a week that are entertaining and hopefully make you laugh because that's my ultimate goal. But today we're doing something a little bit different and that is a study tips video. So how to get a 99 Atar. So a brief summary, basically I graduated school in 2017 with an Atar of 99.8. Now 1 year ago now I posted a how to get a 99 Atar video, so if you haven't seen that I'll have that linked in the description below. But to this day I get so many comments and questions asking me to film another one, film a more in-depth video, so that's what I'm going to be doing for you guys today. The reason it took me so long is because I want to post funny and entertaining videos and that's the goal, so hence I haven't uploaded another one, but I do want to help you guys and offer advice anywhere that I can because that's something I really enjoy doing anyway. So we're finally doing it. We're finally filming another video. So if you do like this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos if you haven't seen them, because I guarantee you they'll make you laugh. So, well, okay, I don't guarantee, but like, hopefully you like them. Let's just get straight into this video. So this video I'm going to be talking about how I took notes, how I studied, how often I did past papers, where I got them from. We're going to be talking a little bit about stress and it's going to be hopefully really informative. And the subjects that I did, which I didn't mention in my last video for some odd reason, was English Advanced, English Extension 1, English Extension 2, Mathematics, Legal Studies and Business Studies. I have received a couple of questions asking if I could do a video on how I studied for each individual subject. So I would be happy to do that if you guys are interested. So comment down below and let me know if you are and I'll be happy to do that for you. Let's get straight into the video. Now I'm going to go on to note taking. So I got quite a few questions on how I took notes, how I structured my notes and whatnot. So we're going to go into detail into that. Now I thought the easiest way to actually explain it to you would be to show you. So I'm going to show you on my laptop how I did that. The example I'm going to use today is business studies because I feel like this approach only really applies to content subjects like business studies, legal studies, modern history, ancient history. There are 4 topics in business studies: finance, marketing, operations, and human resources. So I would make a Word document file for each of those topics. And then before each term, I would have my notes ready. But how did I structure my notes? So I structured them based on the syllabus outline and the syllabus dot points. So I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to give you the example of finance. This right here is the finance topic and these are my finance HSC notes. As you can see, I categorized my notes based on the student loan abouts. The first overall chapter is the role of financial management. So here my notes are and I've categorized them by the role of financial management. Now I've taken a screenshot of these dot points here because these are all the dot points under the role of financial management. As you can very clearly see, I've included this image here in my notes. Now the reason I've done this is because it means that when I'm studying a topic, I can first read through the topics that I'm going to be studying under the overall branch of finance. As you can see, I've used a blue heading here. That's just because I like color in my notes and that aligns with this syllabus dot point here, the strategic role of financial management. And then under that, I've included definitions and then just dot points. And then I have subheadings with a lighter blue background and then again, definition dot points. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I haven't gone through these notes in a very long time, but that's kind of what I did in the HSC and clearly it helped. As I mentioned in the previous video and just then, I always had my notes prepared before the term actually begun. And that meant that in class, I would just add to my notes if there was something missing that the teacher had just mentioned or if we went through case studies and whatnot. So I'm going to quickly go into legal studies. Now, legal studies, I got a lot more class notes and case notes than in business studies. So typically one day at school, I had at least one free period because I did only do 10 units. And in that free period, I would go through all the notes that I got that day in legal studies and I would add them to my own personal notes because I found with legal studies, a lot of the time we got newspaper articles, we got case notes, which weren't in the textbook and they were a lot more up to date and relevant. So it's so important to combine your notes from the textbook, your personal notes, with the class notes that you receive if you want to get that high band 6, even if you want to get a band 6 in general. Another reason that I think structuring based on the syllabus is so essential and important is because a lot of the time you get an essay question or short answer questions based on a certain part of the syllabus. So for example, in legal studies, you might be asked an essay question on the criminal trial process. And if you discuss a topic under the criminal investigation process, you won't get a mark, and you won't get marks because you haven't addressed the question correctly, because they're asking specifically for the criminal trial process. It's important to make sure that you're aware of that so that you can maximize your marks and just do as well as possible. Okay, the next part is how to study. This is how I personally study. I've studied like this for years. And I didn't touch on this in the last video because I kind of just thought everyone has their own methods. But I think it would be interesting, even for me, it would be interesting to know how other high achieving students studied. So hence I'm going to share it with you guys today. So as I touched on in my last video, I should probably stop referring to it, but I assume that a lot of you guys have seen that one. So hence I am. If you haven't, I'll have it linked in the description below because as I said, I think it was pretty helpful. But basically at the end of each week, usually Saturday mornings, I would spend a couple of hours, maybe 2 to 3 hours, studying the content that I had learned that week in legal studies and business studies. So if you do other content heavy subjects, then this study approach applies to them as well. In my opinion, it is not a good idea and you shouldn't be studying your content right when you get your notification. I just think by that time you should be practicing and you should be doing past papers. So hence I think it's really important to be consistent, especially considering you're going to be needing to know this knowledge for either 5 months in advance of the trials or maybe a year in advance in the HSC. So if you can be consistent, it'll be a part of your long-term memory. And by then, when you need to study it again in the trials or the HSC, it'll be so much easier to recall the information. So the way I personally study is I talk to myself. Now, I've always been a talkative, extroverted person, so I think that's why I find it really effective. But another reason, I think it's actually been proven to be one of the more effective ways of studying because it involves most of the senses. So you're talking to yourself, you're reading your notes. That means you also hear it. I also just found it to be most effective for me. So what I would do is I would read through my notes out loud. I would explain it to someone, but I was on my own. And it just allowed me, by explaining it, to be able to understand it myself. As I said, that was the weekly process that I did. Typically when I received my notification, usually you get 2 weeks notice, I would immediately go through all the content again, so reading it out loud, studying it out loud, but I would take it a lot slower just to make sure that I actually knew everything. And then I would spend the rest of the time doing practice papers, but I'm going to go into more detail a bit later. I also studied this syllabus as well. My business studies teacher was so determined in us memorizing the syllabus document, and I have to admit in the beginning I was like, I don't see the relevance and the importance of this, but it definitely is so important. Now I'm going to go on to past papers. I just think past papers are a fundamental aspect of achieving high ATAR. Now there are numerous reasons to do past papers. I'm going to give you a few of them. Sometimes students don't answer the question, whether this be short answer, extended response, essays. They kind of throw as much information onto the sheet as possible to show their breadth of knowledge, but they're not answering the question. So regardless of how much information you put down, if you don't answer the question, you're not going to get the marks, are you? No. So past papers are a great way to get you into the routine of answering the question. The second reason is that it's a great way to solidify your knowledge and make sure that you can actually recall the information. It's another way of studying. So as I said, I read out loud, but sometimes that stressed me. I was like, do I really know the content? I don't know. If you do past papers, you can ensure that you actually know the content. And I found there were some questions where I was like, ooh, I'm a little bit stuck on that topic. And so I would go back and I would reread the information under that syllabus dot point, and it would just allow me to understand my weak areas, my areas of a lack of knowledge, and then you can go and fix that. Also, you get similar questions in exams, so it's just a great way all round to improve your performance in exams. A super effective study method. Now, where to find them? So there are past papers online at the NASA website. You can find the past HSC papers, but I don't think that that is enough past papers to do. So I found that it was also important to do past trial papers. Now you can find past trial papers. There are 2 websites I typically used. The first is THSC Online. It hasn't been updated since 2017, but regardless, if the syllabus is the same as with business studies and legal studies, it's the same since 2009, those past papers are still relevant to you. The other website is called ACE the HSC. That one is a bit of a nicer format, and again, it has past trial papers. So I'll have both of those linked in the description below, but I think they're great websites to use to find past trial papers, because at the end of the day, you want to do as many past papers as possible. You want to make sure that you're checking your papers as well, give them to your teacher for advice. There's no point doing them and then not knowing if you're doing them correctly. But at the same time, you can always check your answers by going back to your notes and comparing them and reading them over as well. It'll enable you to develop your critical skills and learn how to really mark your own work and see, am I answering the question? Yeah, I hope that helps, but I think they're really important ways of improving your study, and also those websites are really helpful. Okay, now on to how often to do them. When it came to getting the notification, I typically spent quite a few hours doing intense study and slower study of the topic, and then I went into doing past papers. So when I say past papers, I don't mean the entire paper. I mean selecting questions that are relevant to your exam. So for example, one of my first assessments was a business studies assessment on marketing, and the format of the exam was multiple choice questions and short answer questions. So I went through as many HSC past papers as possible, and I took out multiple choice questions and short answer questions that were relevant to marketing, and I did those, and then I marked them. So that's a method to do, and as I said, about a week or a week and a half in advance. You don't necessarily have to, I don't know, I'm just gonna, you know what, I don't even want to tell you guys what to do. You can take out what you can from this video, but I'm just giving you my experience. So for example, for a subject like maths, I would suggest doing past HSC questions relevant to the topic once you finish that topic. Say you finish trigonometry, typically my teacher gave us past HSC questions, but go through all those past HSC questions relevant to trigonometry, and then you can move on to the next topic. And then when you get your 2-week notification for a maths exam, spend that entire 2 weeks time doing past HSC questions. By then you should have done all the questions in the textbook, you should know your topics, and you can just spend those 2 weeks doing past questions that are harder, more difficult, to challenge yourself and to just improve your knowledge of the topics and to improve your application. For English, I didn't really do past papers, I just kind of wrote practice essays. English is kind of a different ball game. So as I said, if you want me to do an in-depth video of each of the subjects, I would do a whole video, but just break it up. I'm happy to do that. So just let me know in the comments below. Ew. Okay, so that's in terms of past papers. The next thing I wanted to touch on was stress. So I'm doing a Bachelor of Commerce at Sydney Uni, and that's 95, but if you get above 98, you get into the day old program. So we could say I needed a 98, but kind of needed just a 95. Yeah, so I read a lot of those comments where it was saying, was it worth it? You don't need to study that hard, blah, blah, blah. You don't. You know, there are so many other ways to get into your chosen field of study or your chosen area. You might not even want to go to university, and that's absolutely fine. Everyone's life path is completely different. For me personally though, I am so proud that I put in the work in that year, because even though I only needed, as I said, a 95 or a 98, whatever we want to say, getting a high Atar was something I've very much valued in year 12. And it was one of my goals, and it was my priority. One of the questions was, how did I not get stressed? And I definitely did. I struggled with that because I'm typically quite an anxious person. I did definitely get very stressed, and that's because for me, getting a high Atar was something I valued, and it was very important, and I wanted it so badly. But it kind of became a stress that fueled me to work hard. I fueled that stress into productive study. But I did read a comment that said their stress is preventing them from focusing. That happened to me multiple occasions in year 12 as well. And that's when I just kind of say, take a break. You might have been studying for far too long in a day. You just need to leave your bedroom, you need to leave your study room and just take a break. I remember once I was studying maths and I was getting all the questions wrong. And I was getting so infuriated. And I threw my textbook, I started crying, and I was like to my parents, I'm not gonna do well. And my dad was like to me, it's fine, who cares if you don't do well? And I was like, worst advice ever, because I care. So when I heard that, and when he was telling me it's not a big deal, you don't even need to get a band 6 in maths, like you don't even need to do well in maths, I was like, okay, well, that's terrible advice, so I'm gonna go back and study harder. So it just kind of like made me want to study more and nail the topic. In that moment, I didn't do that because I was so, as I said, my head was just full and it hurt, and I was like, I need a break. So my mum and I went for a walk, and just clearing my head, going outside, doing a little bit of exercise, oh my gosh, it can make the world of difference. So I think sometimes you just need to take a breather and you need to take a break. Another question I got was, how do you not get burnt out? Now I want to give a quick example because I know a lot of people watching might be in younger grades of school. When I was in year 7 at school, I was actually placed in the bottom class for every subject. Now I remember that day when I got my class listing, I was so embarrassed. One of my friends at the time teased me about it and I felt so upset. I went home, I cried to my mum, and I was like, that is it. I am studying so hard this year and I'm gonna move into a higher class next year. And the following year, I actually moved into the top classes for all my subjects. So the reason I'm giving you this example is because I want to show you that with hard work and determination, you can literally do anything. And if you're not in the top class at the moment, that doesn't mean you can't do well in the HSC. That doesn't mean you can't put in the work and achieve your absolute best. And it also is an example of how I clearly have been studying my entire high school life. So there was never a point where I was like, it's year 12 now, I'm gonna do a bit of work. No. So I didn't get burnt out. I think it's because in year 12, I knew that getting a high ATAR was something I wanted. It was, as I mentioned, it was very important to me. And when you know your goals and when you know something's important to you and you want it more than anything, it becomes motivation that just spurs you to achieve things that you didn't think you could achieve. So guys, that was it for today's video. I hope you found it informative. If you did find it helpful, then I'd love to hear in the comments down below. And give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate that. I surprisingly really enjoyed this video, filming it and preparing for it. I just love talking and I love giving advice. So I'll see you guys very soon with another video. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comment section below and I'll try to get to as many of them as possible. And have a lovely day and I'll see you very soon. Bye.